People love with their whole hearts, but nerds, they love with their whole brains. Let me explain. Hey, everybody, it's Ricky from All Sorts of Words, and my second book just came out. It's called Something Awful, and it's currently available on Amazon, link in the description. But I'm so awkward when it comes to promoting the books that I write. My brain has almost equated it to like online panhandling. Now, I'm not like making fun of unhoused people or anything like that, but there's something icky that I feel, and it's my own thing, about coming online and being like, hey, go buy a book of mine. Although I've had this channel for 2 years now, God, time flies, right? Aside from me mentioning it on a couple live streams, most people don't even know that I wrote a first book called The Amazing Mrs. Kadabra. Something Awful is a horror novel. That's the new one that just came out. But the other one is like a young adult fantasy book, something that I would have read as a kid. You know what I mean? But still, even as wholesome as that, I never felt comfortable promoting myself. I do want to tell you about my book, and if anyone wants to support me in any way, shape, or form and go buy it, cool. But I decided, instead of just like facing my discomfort and growing as a person, I would much rather wrap my book pitch in a much broader topic that I've wanted to talk about for quite a while now, which is why all nerds can be writers if they want to be. For want of a definition, nerds are just people who obsess over nuance. You know that phrase, you can't see the forest for the trees? Well, these motherfuckers know each and every leaf. And with that understanding, you can quickly see how nerds aren't people who are just into anime and comic books. Nerds can obsess over cars, sports statistics, and even this one girl's channel, she's made an entire life out of talking about dandelion crayons, a discontinued color from Crayola.
You're wondering why I'm repainting this massive crayon? It's because I want it to look like a dandelion crayon. It was my childhood favorite that was discontinued in 2017, so I have this collection dedicated to it.
Great. But why do nerds specifically make good writers, and why writing specifically? Well, because they're already doing it. Now, if you're not a nerd, but you've been to the movies, you've seen this. And if you're a nerd who's been to the movies, you've done this. Walk through any parking lot after the end of a Marvel movie, and you'll see a bunch of geeks talking about all the things that went wrong in the movie. Pay close enough attention, and you'll definitely hear the phrase, that didn't make any sense. Bonus points if you hear them follow up with, if they had just written it this way, or added in this line, it would have solved the problem. Homie, that's editing. There are Hollywood mucky mucks getting paid more in a day than you make in a year to make those types of calls, to catch those things so that they can fix the movies. And things still get missed all the time. But nerds catch it. Nerds are so obsessed with detail that they can see all of the threads of the story coming together. And when something doesn't make sense, they catch it right away. They're on to you, big Hollywood. No running from nerds. And that conversation that you overhear in the movie theater parking lot, or have engaged in yourself, that is the core of writing. Writing is actually rewriting. Now, look at any book in your house. Seriously, right now. Like, put eyes on a book. Grab it if you have to. There's an illusion that people have that that book was finished in one shot. Even if you're Stephen King, you sat down, you knew what you were doing, you wrote the whole book, beginning to end, boom, sold it to a publisher, millionaire. But no, any book you have in your house, that book you're looking at right now, is realistically in its like 15th draft. That first time you're imagining when someone sits down and writes the thing from beginning to end, we actually call that draft 0. And then every change after that, every chapter that gets cut, every character that gets melded into another character so they can become one friend instead of a group of friends, the bad guy that becomes the enemy at the end that you didn't see coming, all of those changes over time, each one of them creates kind of like the time variance association butterfly effect of different universes, until at the very end you find the most interesting universe, your book, and then you publish it. Let me give you a real example from my own book, Something Awful. Something Awful is the story of a retired serial killer named Andrew. He has this life that he's built for himself, and then one day he has a daughter, and he falls so head over heels with being her father that he quits the life, never gets caught, and runs to northern New Hampshire to raise his daughter Dagny in peace. 15 years later, he is a big, muscular, handsome, pillar of the community, single dad. Everybody in town knows him and trusts him. Life is good for Andrew. He really did leave it all behind. Unfortunately, a 16-year-old budding young serial killer named Connor moves to town. He's just as handsome, just as skilled, and just as deadly. And on day one, he clocks Andrew for exactly what he is. This new serial killer boy is thrilled. He finally has someone he can relate to. He finally doesn't have to be alone anymore. He sees himself as Robin to Andrew's Batman. So Connor starts targeting Andrew through Dagny. He starts dating her to get to him. What's Andrew to do? Does he kill the boy? Does he threaten him to stay away? How does he save his daughter from the type of man he used to be? That's my book. But that wasn't draft 0 for me. In draft 0 of my book, I got 6 chapters in where the story was being told from the perspective of Dagny, the daughter's best friend. She was witnessing her best friend, the serial killer dad, who at the time no one knew was a serial killer, and this new boy come to town. She was witnessing all of this, and she was like our eyes into the story. But I was a member of a writer's group when I first started formulating this book, and a guy who would eventually be my editor for both of my books actually said, why are we so removed from the story? Why aren't we being told the tale from the perspective of the dad and the daughter? Most of the chapters are about them anyway, so just make it about them. And yeah, he was totally right. So I ditched that entire draft, started over from square one, and here we are. Available now on Amazon. Link in the description. But all those changes were only possible because I took my nerdy, high-powered perception, and instead of pointing it at other art for a change, I pointed it at myself. And that's the trick. That's how all of us do it. We do the same things that people do in the movie theater parking lot, but we do it for ourselves. And here's where it gets fun. Every single nerd I've ever met, be it comic book, movie, gearhead, whatever, they all have a story that they would like to see made. Ask any X-Men fan what they'd like to see done with Wolverine and you'll get an earful. But how do you get from here all the way to here? Well, it takes 2 big things. Well, for one, and it's pretty obvious, you have to start writing. I mean, you can't rewrite what you haven't written yet, right? Right. You see, nerds love stuff so much that we all think of our own stories. We all think of, like the Spider-Man movie we'd like to see made. And because nerds are smart, they come up with those stories in their head. But in their head, they're safe. And this is where nerds run into a big problem. There's a video I'm going to show you a clip of in a second, and it's called Brain Crack by Zay Frank, one of the first internet celebrities who ever existed. And legitimately, it actually changed my life. If I ever met the guy in the street, I would tell him, like, I am an author because of you. Here's what he says.
Each day I live in mortal fear that I've used up the last idea that'll ever come to me. If you don't want to run out of ideas, the best thing to do is not to execute them. You can tell yourself that you don't have the time or resources to do them right. Then they stay around in your head like brain crack. No matter how bad things get, at least you have those good ideas that you'll get to later. Some people get addicted to that brain crack, and the longer they wait, the more they convince themselves of how perfectly that idea should be executed. And they imagine it on a beautiful platter with glitter and rose petals. And everyone's clapping for them. But the bummer is most ideas kind of suck when you do them. And no matter how much you plan, you still have to do something for the first time. And you're almost guaranteed the first time you do something, it'll blow. But somebody who does something bad 3 times still has 3 times the experience of that other person who's still dreaming of all the applause.
In summary, a story existing in your head is perfect. and it's safe. But it's in here. It's not a book, it's a thought. Whether it's a note app on your phone, pen and paper, laptop, it doesn't matter. You still have to write to be a writer. Stephen King says that himself. It's kind of like a crowd joke he does. Someone asks him how to be a writer, and he goes, write. Really, what the person in the crowd is asking, how do I become a millionaire writer? Which is a lot more nuanced. It requires talent, work, repetition. But to just be a writer, you just got to write. So one of the two things you need to do to be a writer is pen to page, baby. And the second biggest thing you're going to need to do to be a writer, you have to set aside your ego. Remember that example I gave you earlier about people talking about a Marvel movie in the parking lot of the theater? Well, imagine if you're talking to a friend or you gave a draft to your friend or something, and they did the same thing for you. They handed you a silver bullet to crack your story wide open to make it make sense. And instead of going, thank you, rushing back to the page and getting to work, you got pissed off. Not only do you need that feedback of someone telling you, hey, this part really doesn't make sense, you actually need to do that for yourself and way harder. Sir Arthur Quiller Couch, in his 1916 book On the Art of Writing, wrote that you need to kill your darlings. What he means by that is everything you, as the writer, love about your story needs to live on the chopping block if it serves to make your story better. I am sure Zack Snyder loved Gal Gadot's read of her line appealing to Superman to stop being such a jerk.
Kal-El, no! Kal-El,
no! But when 10 million people tell you that the read doesn't work, you should probably listen. You see, this is the biggest weakness of the nerd wanting to be a writer. Since we love with our whole brains, we often convince ourselves that we're right, which can lead to us resisting change if we didn't think of it ourselves. And that's pretty much it. This is a huge topic that I'm going to be exploring over the next couple of weeks. But for an opening salvo, I'm just happy with encouraging every nerd out there who wants to be a writer that although you're not going to make millions of dollars right off the bat, I mean, I guess you could be that lucky. I'd hate you, but you could. But being a writer does have its own very tangible rewards. The first one, and often the biggest, is this is like writing's like an exorcism. Any nerd out there who's listening to me right now who formulates those stories in their head about what they would do with Spider-Man or maybe a horror novel you want to write, whatever, we all do the same thing. We walk around with this thought in our head and we picture it so clearly. This story, this beat, this action sequence. But like I said, it's a thought, it's not a book. So you carry it with you and it gets like a patina on it, and it gets more valuable to us as the years go by because it's this thought that we can always return to. You know, you spend enough time in a comic book store talking to nerds, and after a while the walls will come down and the nerd will tell you, yeah, I've got a book in me. But like getting it out of you, oh my God, dude, you can't even imagine how peaceful it is. You pull this thing out of you, you teach it to walk, you sell it on Amazon, and then if you really love this thing, if you really do see yourself as a writer who just hasn't written anything yet, you now have more mental space to work on the next thing. Because I got to tell you, being an American, we all believe that like our day's coming. Any day now, someone's going to pull up in a limo, see me for the genius I am, and then just drop $1 million in my lap. But that's not how it works. You really have to do a lot of work and suffer quite a bit to make this type of stuff happen. And so if you don't take anything I say today, take this. That book that you're fantasizing about in your head is more than likely not the next Harry Potter. It's not going to be the next Game of Thrones. It's just your first book. But you know what? You might have a Harry Potter in you. Might be your 6th book, might be your 7th, might be your 2nd. I have no idea. But you're never going to find out until you start turning those thoughts into books. But now the biggest benefit of becoming a nerd writer, it's the response of your family and friends telling you how proud of you they are. Think about it, like buying a house, graduating high school, graduating college, having a kid. When else as an adult do people line up to tell you that they're proud of you and that they love what you did? It's not often, man. I was even talking to my brother-in-law a couple months ago. He said, like, you know, the first kid you have, everybody is like so congratulatory. Oh, you must be so excited. But you have the second kid, and the response is a lot more muted than the first one. It's almost like, yeah, we get it. I'm telling you, 2 books in, everybody's just as excited the second book as they are the first one. In fact, people get a little bit more impressed when they find out that you wrote 2 books from 2 different genres, because they're like, wow, you're really doing it. Both times I've told people I've written a book, my loved ones line up down the block to show up for me and buy a copy and tell me how proud of me they are. And it is, man, I got to tell you, if pulling the book out of your head and teaching it to walk isn't enough of a motivator, think of everyone in your life lining up outside your door to say how much they love you. That is, whew, feels good. And to close things out, not every nerd has to be a writer. Heck, not every nerd wants to be a writer. But in case you're one of the millions of passionate nerds out there dreaming about their own superhero story, if you can set aside your ego and find the will to pull those words out of your head and wrestle them onto the page, well then, damn it, you're a writer. Love you, bye. Available on Amazon now. Link in the description.
Wanna rock with Jenny? Keep your head down, nails done like